Hi guys, my name's Imogen, I'm 19 years old and I'm currently on a gap year. Despite the fact that the government have done a U-turn on the Gcse and A-level results and let you have your centre assessed grades, there will still be many of you out there who are disappointed with the grades that your sixth form or school or college have given you, and as a result will therefore be sitting the autumn 2020 exams. The situation in which these autumn exams are occurring is literally unprecedented. There has never ever been a situation like this, where you've had 6 months of education, you then find yourself in a position where you need to resit or sit your exams for the first time in October, and you have maybe minimum 50 days to prepare for your exams. The revision period for these exams is so small, and so today I'm here to give you some tips so that you give yourself the best chance in October or November when you sit those exams. Tip number 1 is about timings. There is no way that you are feasibly going to be able to work every single waking hour of every single day, and it's just not going to be effective in giving you the best results in October or November. If you're sitting A-levels and you're taking a gap year, I would recommend trying to work in the same hours that you would be working if you were still in school. So try and work for 5 hours a day, Monday to Friday, and let yourself have the weekends off as a little break. Doing some very quick maths here, if you're working for 5 hours a day and you're working for 5 days a week, that's 25 hours a week. And if you're doing that for approximately 8 weeks, should we say, then you're doing 200 hours of revision. And that should be plenty, particularly if you're only resitting 1 or maybe 2 of your A-levels. If you're sitting your GCSEs, then it's going to be a little bit more tricky because most likely you will be doing some form of education in September as well. So you're going to have to try and fit things in around it. In that case, I would recommend blocking out a couple of hours each evening specifically for revision for your exams, and then leaving the other time to do your work from school, college or sixth form, depending on where you're off to next. Tip number 2, and this is one of the most important tips in this whole video, is to start with the content that you didn't finish at school. Obviously, schools broke up in March, and for many A-level courses and probably some GCSE courses, it is likely that you haven't actually finished learning all of the content for your course. In which case, that is what you're going to want to focus on first and foremost, because you need to learn that from scratch and then revise it as well. Tip number 3 is to make sure your revision is both focused and effective. You're not going to want to go over the topics that you've done inside out that you know really well. Instead, you need to focus on those ones that you maybe learned just before you broke up from school, or you just don't understand as well. It is going to be difficult to do that, especially when you're doing independent study, because independent study, let me tell you, is difficult. And it's even more difficult when you don't necessarily have the support that you would have had if you were going through GCSEs or A-levels at the normal time. However, you need resilience. You have already shown so much resilience in being able to deal with the fiasco that has been exam results. So let's channel that into your exams in October and November, and that will give you the very best chance. Personally, if I was sitting the exams this autumn, then I would be looking to do 2 weeks of brushing up on the content, so going over the hardest topics, and then the next month, if you're doing the A-level exams, or maybe month and a half if you're doing the GCSEs, focused on past papers, because although past papers are really difficult when you're not up to date on the content, it is the best way to pick up knowledge quickly. This is particularly true of science subjects. For example, biology, I know that doing past papers is really helpful. Maths, I know that past papers are really helpful. However, if you're doing essay subjects, another tip I have is instead of writing whole essays out, because at the moment it's unlikely that you're going to be able to get them marked because your teachers have also got to teach new students in September, instead try and write out essay plans, and then you'll be able to see where your weaknesses lie, and you can work on those essay plans which you find difficult more so than the ones that you are finding easier. At that point, you can then choose a few of your harder essays, you can write them up into proper essays and see if somebody from your old school or your current school will mark them for you. Tip number 4 is to do active, not passive revision. The time for sitting there scrolling through your phone with a YouTube video about, I don't know, quadratic equations in the background has passed. We do not have time for that anymore. You have a very small time frame in which to revise for these exams, and you need to make sure you use it. Tip number 5 is to use all the help you can get. I am going to link some really useful resources in the description box down below, so definitely do go and have a look down there. I've seen that Tolu has a spreadsheet on her Instagram with a whole load of university students who are willing to help you revise for your October or November exams. Simply Fran has compiled a list of useful resources for anybody who is appealing, anybody who is sitting October exams, so definitely also go and check that out. My friend Jo over at the organisation Unipear is offering help and support for any students who are aspiring to go to Oxford or Cambridge. These are just a few examples of organisations who are willing to help you out, or people who are willing to help out doing these October and November exams, and my top tip here is just use it or lose it. Like, the offers are not going to be there forever. You have nothing to lose but everything to gain from getting the help of other people. My 6th tip is to find yourself a study buddy for motivation. I know, I hate that term too. But honestly, for me, I cannot revise if I'm just sat there alone. It doesn't matter who is sat next to me, it doesn't matter what they're doing, as long as they're quiet, I revise so much better when I have somebody else there. If anybody else you know is sitting October or November exams, then try and keep in touch with them because they are going to give you some motivation because they're also doing the same thing as you. If you are sitting exams in October or November, let us know whether you're sitting GCSE or A-level exams in the comments box down below and what subjects you are doing. And hopefully we can kind of create some sort of community on here of students who are sitting those exams. My next tip is all about where you are going to revise, where you're going to study. Normally you would have school to provide you with a change of scenery, or you could go to the library, you could go to a cafe, but right now that maybe isn't the best thing to do, particularly if you have somebody who is of high risk of COVID in your household. If you do have anybody in your bubble, or maybe you have a spare room in your house where you could work, then try and create an alternative workspace. This means you're going to be able to go between the 2 different workspaces, and it's going to provide that change of scenery which will motivate you to revise. And my final tip is to break down revision into chunks. You obviously cannot do 5 hours all in one go, so try and do half an hour and then have a 5-minute break. Or, like me, if that doesn't really work for you, then maybe do a couple of hours and then allow yourself to have an hour off. The final thing I want to say is I know that you have had a long break from education. This is unlike revising in any other situation. But everybody else sitting those autumn exams is in the exact same boat, and it will be reflected in the grade boundaries. You have got this, you can do this, and you will do this. Now go and smash those October exams. Go and smash this revision period, and maybe even the like and subscribe button down below if you've enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time with a new video.